I guess I'll get my worst out of the way because I didn't really see that many movies that I didn't like last year, which is great. Mostly very happy and good watching experiences. So I'll do my two worst, and then I've got three best I can talk about down the line a little bit. So my worst, I've got two. The first one is the one that as soon as we decided this topic, I knew I was going to have to talk about this movie because I have not hated a movie this much, and I don't even know
Oh no.
how long. This did not come out last year. It came out the previous year. So it's a relatively recent one. I had never heard about it. My girlfriend and I were just like having a date night. We just kind of wanted to chill, eat some Chinese food, watch some random movie. So we found this one. It's called The School for Good and Evil. It's based on like a young adult, like fantasy, romancy kind of novel from about a decade ago. And it looked fun on the premise. On the surface, the premise sounded good. It's like, okay, so all these heroes and villains go to one of these two magical schools. It's like, you know, one of those like wizard school types of things, which, you know, I'm a millennial, of course, that's like in my brain all the time, whether I like it or not. And you know, we started watching it. It started out pretty good. There's these two best friends who, you know, turn out to be witches, and they go to these schools, and then it turns out one of them, who's like obsessed with like, you know, princess stuff and whatever, and really wants to be a good guy, ends up, of course, going to the evil one, and the other one ends up going to the good one. And this whole film is basically about how stories are supposed to go, and you have to kind of train to be the best good guy or the best bad guy that you can be. You know, like maybe, God, 15 or so years ago, there was also a superhero version of this with Sky High, but this was kind of like a fantasy version of that idea. And
what country
you know,
is this from?
I want to say the United States.
Okay.
Lots of American actors in it. Like Kerry Washington was in it, and my brain is blanking on a name. Give me 1 second. Why doesn't my brain work? Charlize Theron, oh my God, is in it, and I love her. So I was like, okay, you know, if nothing else, we'll have some good eye candy, right? Yes, cool, good. And yes, so, you know, plot progresses and everything. The one who wants to be good is becoming more and more evil until eventually she just kind of breaks and is like, all right, screw this. I'm going to be as evil as I can be. I'm going to do my own thing now. And long story short, she gets very manipulated by an actual very evil person who actually wants to like wreck everything. And she ends up just, you know, kind of getting her shit wrecked. And there's this like true love's kiss moment that has to like bring one of the best friends back or whatever. They mouth kiss like on the lips. It's like a love thing. And then they have the audacity to say that they were best friends. It was just a friends thing. And I was just like, what? In the year of our Lord 2022, you're gonna queer bait me that bad? And I was so mad about it. And we both just raged because it seems like the kind of movie that would have come out when like I was, you know, a teenager or a kid or something. And I'm just like, in 2022 they made this movie and went back on it that badly. And I mean, the movie was like, it wasn't great. It wasn't like a great movie, period, but it was at least entertaining enough that I didn't really regret watching it until the end. And then when the end happened, I was just like, I want that 2 hours of my life back immediately. I could have watched anything else, including my other worst pick, and had a better time.
Oh, wow.
It was so bad.
It reminded me when I remember when it came out. It was a Netflix movie that also went into the theater. Is that it had the look of that Miss Peregrine movie?
Yeah, and I actually did see that one too back in the day.
Which was a terrible adaptation of a really good book.
Looked terrible.
Yes.
You know, so that's what it reminded me. That's what it looked like. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just one of those, you know, young adult novel adaptation things. On the other hand, I did see the Hunger Games prequel film, and I did enjoy that one. Maybe not as much as the other films, but it was still pretty good. I liked it. It was fun. Saw it on a date. It was nice.
So what was your first best?
Oh no, I want to do my other worst to get it out of the way.
Okay.
That's
And Henry
fine.
knows what's coming because I told him this.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is going to be a controversial one.
This is going to be a controversial one, but
I
I'm
want
I'm
to.
I'm yeah, I've been thinking
Godzilla
about
minus
it.
one.
No, that came out in 2023. I can't say that. My other worst one is the Suspiria remake, which I finally watched.
Oh yeah, I already had talked to you about that.
Oh my god. And like the thing that sucks about this is I went in knowing that a lot of people I know whose opinions I respect really hated it, and I went in knowing that some people whose opinions I really respect actually really liked it.
Like,
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go into this. I'm going to just kind of see what happens, see what they give me with this film, and get out of it what I get out of it. And I got nothing out of it. I was just really disappointed. Like, I respect it, and like, I saw this with somebody I started seeing recently, and they had the same opinion that I did about it with this, where it's like, I respect them for deviating so much from the original in some very bold ways, because if you're going to remake something, there's no point if you're just making the same movie take for take over again. The original Suspiria is brilliant. It's beautiful. I know Bill is always talking about loving how colorful it is, and just the visuals are phenomenal. The music is incredible. The pacing is perfect.
In the theater is.
Yeah. Yeah, like I love
kind of a flaw.
love
It's one of those kind of flawless movies, or what I call perfect movies.
Yeah, like you just see it and you're just like, that was a ride
Yeah.
from beginning to end. I loved every second of it. But the remake, just there were a lot of ways that I felt that it fell short. I do like that they went in a different direction with the overall story. Like, whereas the original is, you know, about this girl trying to survive the crazy cult that she kind of stumbled into. This one is her becoming that, you know, it's her getting inducted into it and being like, okay, you know, I'm like with this coven now, it's my thing.
Yeah, she's into it.
Yeah, you know, I respected that. I thought that was a really cool twist on it, but the pacing was not very good, I felt. I feel like it needed more music desperately. There were lots of moments where I was just like, this is,
what's that?
It's missing something. And I thought about it, I was like, it's the music. It doesn't have that atmospheric like stuff.
Yeah. That was the biggest loss in translation to the new film.
Yeah.
To me,
Tom York did this little ballad with a weak voice. Suspiria. I'm like, okay, he doesn't get it, but okay, whatever.
No, you gotta hit me over the head with a sledgehammer of music. That's what I want.
Yeah. One thing that I did like about it, because I don't want to say that this movie was a complete waste of my time. I just want to say that I did not care for it overall. But one thing that I loved about it was the really good dancing. The dancing in it was phenomenal. And I will absolutely give it that. I have a deep appreciation for that because my late grandmother was a professional dancer. She's actually studied under Balanchine. She was a rockette. She did ballet. She did all of this stuff. And I have the grace of like a hippopotamus wearing a tutu, guys. Like I can't dance to save my life. So I see this stuff and I appreciate it. And especially like when the protagonist was kind of learning this like ritual dance, and there's the torture scene going on at the same time, and it's like the dance as ritual was fascinating. I really loved that. But that was like the one thing about the film that I actually really enjoyed, and the rest of it I was just like, what's going on here? I need you to give me some more. And like the climax was nice and fun and bloody and weird, and that's great. Yeah,
lots of nudity and blood, and I was all for that.
Yeah, no, that's fun. like lots of nudity and blood. They're great in horror films. Love those things. You know, they're great. Feast for the eyes. But yeah, no, I just feel like the pacing was really off. It really needed a solid soundtrack to it. I feel like the story could have been a little tighter. Also, I feel like there was just kind of a lot going on, and it didn't really come together as well as I think I would have liked.
Well, you know,
I feel like they gave us too much of the the mother witch.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is, since it was less cinematic, and a lot the people who are detractors of the original are like, Argento doesn't have a coherent plot. So they tried to actually take all that information about the Talons Academy and all that, and of course expand it, and then have these. My favorite scenes were the ones where Tilda Swinton is dressed as the professor and Jessica Harper's in it. And we
Yeah.
actually start hearing some exposition,
Mhm.
and I wish they'd done. I mean, a lot of people would not, but I wish they had done more of that.
I agree. Yeah, I enjoyed those. And just seeing Tilda Swinton as like 3 different characters, and that was really
Yeah.
entertaining. Because once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I was just like, "That's Tilda Swinton."
My
oh my
take
god!
also,
And then like at
my
the end,
take
it's
on-
like, "That's her again." Oh my god!
my take on enjoyment on the enjoyment side is basically Suspiria by Argento, for me, is an entirely emotional and visceral experience.
Yeah.
And this movie was the remake was an intellectual experience. And
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
I was able to enjoy it, because I'm like it was an entirely different experience. It was like context similarities, story similarities, but it was an intellectual experience. So yes, Tilda Swinton, I'm analyzed. It was an analysis experience, which is a positive sometimes for a film. But yeah, that's why I told you earlier that it was a completely. I enjoyed them both in different ways, because it was a purely intellectual enjoyment.
Yeah.
Because it was the whole time I'm analyzing what they're doing rather than just experiencing it versus
that's how it was for
original.
me too, because like with the first one, it's like it doesn't let you stop to think about what you're experiencing. It's just, here's your experience, you can go process that later in therapy if needed.
I would love to get that in a full theater experience. I haven't had it yet, but I can imagine it in the theater.
I actually came to Charlotte. I was amazed. Stunned.
That's cool. That's really cool. I would love to see that on the big screen with the like surround sound and everything. And oh man, yeah, that'd be good.
So
so I think I didn't completely hate it. Like, whereas with The School for Good and Evil, I would give it 0 stars. I would give it -5 stars.
That one just looks like trash.
Hated that film. The Suspiria remake, I would give like 2 out of 5 stars, maybe. There were some things about it that I liked. There were a lot of things that I didn't like. It didn't work for me overall, but I respect it. I respect it. It wasn't like a waste of my time, but it was definitely one that I was like, okay, I saw it. It's off my list. I don't need to watch it again. Whereas the original, I will revisit over and over because phenomenal. Yeah.
If the original is a 5 out of 5 for me, then this one's probably a 3.5 for me.
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I changed the plan ever so slightly. I will go last. Richard, I'm very curious about what Richard picked in his presentation. So, floor's yours, sir.
Well, the films I chose weren't necessarily the best films I saw this year. I watched a lot of films, particularly during Halloween month. October, my religion is watching horror films all throughout the month of October.
Yes.
I'm with you on that.
Don't bother me. I'm watching horror films for the month. So I focused on a couple of, and I did rewatch a lot of films, so those didn't qualify for the rules of engagement here. But a couple of films I chose to focus on were 2 films that for years and years, I saw the video boxes in video rental stores, passed them by, picked it up, looked at it, didn't ever take them home. I decided to finally watch them. And the first one is a film called Dead and Buried. For years, I thought it was an Italian zombie film, but it turns out it wasn't. It was
Melody Anderson.
Sorry?
With them, Melody Anderson, among other actors.
Oh, okay. But it's directed by Gary Sherman, who also did a film called Raw Meat, a really interesting Hammer cannibal film from the early 70s. The poster scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. I didn't see that one until I was an adult. But Dead and Buried is really good. It's got a great mood to it. It's not a perfect film. It was credited to the screenwriting team that did Alien, Dan O'Bannon, and what's the guy, Ronald Sheets.
Oh, okay, cool.
But apparently O'Bannon disavowed his participation and said that none of his material got into.
He did that a lot.
Yeah, they pissed him off. But anyway, it's got James Ferrantino. He's a small town sheriff investigating this strange cult of people that are murdering tourists. They
What year
were
was this? Do you know? I'm just
it was
sorry
in
to interrupt.
1981.
1981.
Yes,
Okay.
80s.
Nice.
Yeah, very early 80s, and
Okay.
it shows it. It's got that I think in a good way, that 80s vibe to it. I tried to
Mhm.
focus on a lot of 80s films during this
Okay.
Halloween marathon, because there's a lot. That's a decade where I didn't watch as many films, and I kind of was disgruntled about the state of horror, because I've been watching horror all throughout the 70s, and I was a big
Mhm.
Hammer fan, and I loved the old Universal films. I thought that the films were getting a little kind of stupid.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't like them
Now,
at the
now I've
time,
gone back
but-
and I've discovered whole treasure troves of great
Yeah.
80s films.
Yeah.
Typically, if
Yeah.
I watched the 80s film, it would have been an Italian or a Spanish film.
Mhm.
But anyway, long story made short, it's a really good film. It's got Jack Albertson, a character
Oh,
actor,
wow.
as
Yeah.
this creepy Undertaker. And if you remember, was it Return of the Living Dead? There's a great creepy Undertaker in that film as
I
well.
love that.
Mhm.
A Nazi Undertaker.
Jack Albertson from Chico and the Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
And-
was he
and-
looking good?
He in this film,
Yeah.
he's actually really good in this film.
Yeah.
It's a great role, and he's eating it up. But I won't tell you too much about it, other than there's a killer cult, there's zombies, there's a fantastic kind of Twilight Zone mood of paranoia, where the sheriff is trying to figure out, am I dreaming? Is this real? All these inexplicable things are happening, and he doesn't know who's in on it and who's not in on it. But I recommend it highly. That was a pleasant surprise.
That sounds right up my alley. Like I've got to check that out. Yeah,
It's
I
on
like
Dead and
Amazon.
them a
Buried.
lot.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime if you can get that, and I'm
Nice.
sure you can probably rent it or buy it someplace.
Yeah, I have Amazon Prime, so I'll definitely check that one out soon.
Right on. Yeah, that was a hidden gem. The other one, it wasn't quite as successful as Dead and Buried, but it was a film called Shockwaves, directed by Ken Wiederhorn was the guy's name, and he went on to do such kind of hack work like Porky's 2 and what else he did Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which is not a bad film. It's a guilty pleasure perhaps, but anyway, Shockwave is a Nazi zombie film, which there is a subgenre, as you know, of Nazi zombie films, and
Right.
this is a pretty good one. And what it lacks in acting, it makes up in mood. The directing's a little deadpan, but the zombies themselves are really interesting because they're underwater zombies.
Yeah.
Long story made short, the plot is that there's a cruise ship somewhere, I guess in the Caribbean, and they run into this big orange fog, and it wakes up these genetically altered zombies that are at the bottom of the ocean, and they get shipwrecked on an island. And the only person living on the island is Peter Cushing, who is a Nazi in hiding.
Yeah.
And so it's got Peter
Interesting.
Cushing, it's got John Carradine in a late stage role, it's got Brooke Adams in an early role.
And I gotta say, she's in a bikini a lot in that, and she's really fine.
She was.
That's an attractive concept, you know.
But I recommend that one. The zombies are pretty interesting because they kind of emerge from the water and they'll kind of goose step back into the water in a side profile and kind of a line. So maybe not
Sounds
for
like a
everyone.
riot.
I got a big kick out of that film, and like I said, it made up in mood what it lacked in. The acting by the non-principals is pretty bad. There's some fairly bad acting in that film from. I love to see John Carradine in that though. John Carradine was actually a lot of fun. He was enjoying. He seemed to be enjoying that role at a time we probably wasn't enjoying a lot of roles. But those were two films that were, I would say, pleasant surprises. And the film I chose for the worst film, I have to say, even though it was maybe the worst film I watched all year, it was actually one of my most enjoyable films. But for me, the line between good and bad is very blurred. I love a lot of things like Ed Wood, of course, the most notable bad director. Everyone knows Ed Wood. That kind of film I love. I love bad film.
Al Adamson.
I love Al. I loves me some Al Adams. I love. I think Henry and I have the same taste in terms of a lot of this kind of stuff.
You know who my favorite is of those is Ted V. Michaels.
Oh, Ted. Yeah, love him. Yeah, he did Astro Zombies. Is that right?
Yeah,
yeah.
We've had that discussion. It's like I so much enjoy genius without talent, you know. But then there's those that are talentless and not a genius, and then those are really bad. You know, those are not enjoyable. But
this film, this film I'm going to talk about is called Alabama's Ghost.
Oh wow, a blaxploitation movie, our first one reviewed.
Well, it's sort of a blaxploitation film. Sort of. It's indescribable. Henry, have you seen the film?
I have, because I had to track down E. Frederick Hobbs after Roseland. And now I've seen it, and the one with the sheep. I saw those two, and I keep a list of blaxploitation movies, or ones that are considered. Yeah. And it had Christopher Brooks, who was just brilliant in Roseland. So yeah, I finally saw it. I liked it. I didn't love it. I think it was the weakest of the three of his I'd seen. But
I had never seen any of his film. The director is Frederick Hobbs. I guess you said E. Frederick Hobbs. I guess he's best known for God Monster of Indian Flats, which I haven't seen.
Yes, and that's an okay movie, but Roseland is brilliant. I mean,
I'll check that one out.
He kind of went on a decline, but
Well, Alabama's Ghost. The basic plot is there's a black man who is janitor in like a club, like I think it's a magician's club or something like that. And he's doing something. He breaks the wall down accidentally with a backhoe, and he finds a hidden chamber. And in the hidden chamber, there all the equipment from the magician Carter the Great. And I looked it up. Carter the Great is an actual magician that did live and practice magic for many years on the stage. But he finds his equipment and decides to become a magician. And I would go more into detail in the plot, but the plot becomes pretty labyrinthine and confused. But I enjoyed it. It's got a subplot about a underground group of vampires that are trying to take over the world. Really, it's one of those kind of films, kind of like Robert Downey Sr. made. Or William Klein, who did Mr. Freedom, that kind of not as successful, those directors, but kind of mining that same territory of satire and psychedelia. And
of that time, it's very of
absurdism.
That time.
Definitely of the time. And it's not for everyone. And I was scratching my head the whole time I was watching it, like what were they thinking? And what was?
I liked it, but I was disappointed in it because I really thought it would be better than the God Monster Killer Sheep movie. But it wasn't. It was better, but not by a whole lot. But I love Christopher Brooks, so I kind of forgave
it. Do you know what year this one was?
That one came out in 1973.
73. Okay.
Yeah,
he did them pretty close to each other, and then he disappeared.
Yeah, I looked up the guy, and apparently he was an artist working in the Bay Area, and he specialized in doing decorated cars, automobiles, kind of like almost like floats you would see in a fair. And one of those cars is in the Alabama's Ghost. It's kind of the car that the guy's driving around all the time. But he had apparently quite the career as a fine artist.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
If you watch Roseland, it's pretty. He directs it and he acts in it under the name Kerrigan Scott, and it's kind of autobiographical in a lot of ways, and the photography is way better than the other two movies. The music's really good, and it's just this guy's journey. He's kind of like a milquetoast kind of guy, and that was popular in the 70s, like Woody Allen, the whole like I can't get laid, and I'm so socially maladjusted, and he goes through these kind of awakenings, and so it's his trippy reactional, and then some of the stuff is really insane, and it's very well cut, and it moves along really well. So I got something weird videotape many years ago. I don't have it anymore, but it's still has not come to digital. I think Lisa's going to try to put it on digital soon, but she's reorganizing the entire company. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
She's actually shutting down something weird proper.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's shutting down the website, the store, the downloads, and then she's going to reopen it, and she's going to basically sell these movies in a different way. But she's the only employee now, so she and their sales are down because the economy, and she's like she wrote a long thing just yesterday, and I know her, by the way, not intimately or anything, but we talked, and she wanted me to write for this book one time, and I was lazy and I didn't do it. I missed the deadline. But she she said it was just kind of, she needed to reclaim her life, that she had with Brainy, but without Brainy now, because he kind of was her life, and she was carrying on his mission here, but that it wasn't making enough money to justify the work, and so she's shutting all that down, and she's going to figure out a different way to sell things. But see, she's fortunate because she's farming out titles she owns and getting other of these boutique Blu-ray labels to put them out, like AFGA is doing one, maybe like Vinegar Syndrome or something like that. That kind of label, she's got a bunch of them. So, she's sitting on so many prints of so many obscure movies. It is insane. It is really crazy.
Awesome. There's just not enough demand to make it financially viable. That's the problem.
Well, I think she started scrunching 2 movies per DVD, but I don't know. Personally, I would put like 3 of them on one Blu. Well, actually, she did do 3 on one Blu-ray, the Flesh trilogy. But I would. Yeah, she's got a strategy, but she needs to tweak it because it's just not quite making enough money right now. But I don't think it's all her fault. It's just she took on too much, but people don't have as much disposable income for collectibles right now, and that stuff's very niche even still.
Yes.
I guess if one of the problems is that there's not enough demand for these things, like that's one good thing about what we're trying to do here, is like get people to be aware of some of these things they might not have heard of otherwise, and then somebody hears about it, they recommend it to someone, and hopefully maybe things will get a little bit more popular.
I agree, and we're going to help do that. One thing that makes me mad about Lisa's situation, because I'm all about this kind of social justice stuff. Don't call me an SJW, please. But
I am a social justice wizard, for the record, not a warrior. I'm obviously a wizard. Look how many books are behind me.
That's right.
Yes, I'm a social justice wizard. So the thing is, when I used to call something weird video, it'd be at night, and this guy Greg would be there, and we would just start chatting. And at that time, this is like the late 90s, they had some major people buying tons of their shit. John Carpenter, Quentin Tarantino. He talked to all these people on their phone. And I thought, if Lisa's collapsing in the economy, why don't these 2 rich filmmakers that she helped out give her some money? But you always expect and hope that's how things are going to work, but the world doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad. Because if I were like John Carpenter, I'd be like, here's $1 million, Lisa. It's cool.
Well, in Austin, there was something kind of like that. There was Vulcan Video.
Oh yeah, I used to live in Austin. I remember Vulcan.
And Vulcan Video was your place to go for the obscure, right? And they even stuck around on into a Blu-ray age, still renting out video cassettes. Of things, on top of, because some things still only existed in video cassette, and they eventually had to go under. And the guy from Alamo Drafthouse, he bought out. That's what he did, so that he could keep those things available and going.
Got a great chain going now.
And so that's where that came from. Was somebody who had the money and the clout saw a need and he stepped up, and so they were able to go out of business, but he was able to keep the movies going like
I
that.
miss those curated video stores.
Yeah.
Every city had one, Vulcan was a very special, very special place. I learned a lot by renting from there.
And where was Vulcan? It was in Austin?
Austin, Texas.
Yeah, downtown Austin, that area.
Mm.